And moreover, due to some reason or the other, if somebody misses out today's this thing, no, it will be useful.
Yeah. Okay. I think we have enough number of people to start. So good morning all. We will welcome to our 19th film show and discussion. We have filmmaker Aditi Madalli, and we are showing her film Songs of Soil, and we had shown her film in Chennai Film Festival also. So this is our actual second screening, if Aditi remembers that. So, and this particular, as you all know, this particular screening of Marubakam online film screening was started in the last week of April, and we have been showing a film per weekend. We are having the discussion with the filmmaker almost every weekend. So it's been a quite an encouraging and energetic experience for all of us. And we are getting, of course, we have a regular group of people, like, and we also get every time we get new, like this time Vishnu has joined first. This is the first program, and then Sushanti has joined. This is first program. So welcome all of you. So I just start with Aditi. Aditi, just can you just explain about the way you started the film? You know, like how did you decide to make this film? When did you first have this idea? You know, I heard, like, for an example, many people like, for an example, there's a film called Up Down Sideways. When they filmmakers, they actually wanted to record songs only initially. So they went to record the songs, and then they got inspired by the people and the location and the stories, and they made a film. So similarly, every film has its own, you know, like what genesis, interesting kind of genesis. You know? So we would like to know, like, how did you start this film? What was how did the whole film evolve, and who all worked with you? Can you just explain to us?
First of all, thank you for actually showing Panipata Poratam twice, and also organizing this interaction, because I have been coming to realize that these interactions post films are so important, and they've been so unpredictable. Every interaction has been so different. So thank you. So the film had a very long research period. I think until the end, I have been, doing the research for the film. And before we started shooting, I had about 2 years of research on the field, because not much literature is available on these oral traditions. But like you said, that I had first pitched it for a government cultural project as podcasts. So I wanted to look at songs from the Telangana People's Movement that women were singing, and also probably intersperse it with some of the histories of these women who participated. So like, if you know Telangana history, then the Telangana People's Movement is known for women's participation in the armed struggle. So then the questions that I entered with were, what were their histories, what were their stories, and then if they did sing, for instance, because women play a very big role in organizing and singing in these political movements, then who wrote these songs, where did they come from, who did they sing about? So these were some of the questions I entered with. But then a lot had changed in the initial year itself, because I went in to look at history through songs, but then I encountered that, okay, these written histories are different from oral histories, and how do they then become written histories? Then it took me to agriculture itself to say that, okay, these are work songs. And so how do work songs become political literature? So all of those, so then I then went deeper into history to say that, okay, if they became political literature from work songs, so one is, work songs are very ephemeral. Everybody weaves in a line as they, work, as they sing. It's not fixed. You do pass it on as oral tradition, but it's not like a defined line or anything. So it also, you tell the story, but you keep telling it as you go. So then how did then when these songs became political literature, how did they get written? So those were some of my entry points. And obviously then even in contemporary land-based movements, these songs exist. So they exist very much even today, which is what I wanted to show, that, histories have changed, but these are work traditions. And since it is a land-based movement, this is the articulation. This is political articulation. So it still exists today, whether, it gets diverged into little written political histories or cinema or whatever else. This is still the language of political assertion. So that was like the end of my research. But all of this happened only by continuously being on the field. These are not like written stories. So as much as I was seeking the oral traditions, it's important to see how these oral traditions came to me, which is that everybody knows an Uyala song, but they don't know where they can't mark it down. Everyone can sing it, because they largely exist in popular memory as songs women sing in, say, ceremonies, religious ceremonies or weddings, different ceremonies of weddings, or as lullabies to God. So there is a whole history of being Hinduized and Sanskritized, for that matter. So when all of that has happened, that's how it reaches us. So if you ask anybody Uyala Patlu, then they'll talk about either devotional songs or as lullabies. But nobody is able to point it down historically. So that's also a very urban, popular understanding of Uyala Patlu. So it exists, but then where did it come from? So those are some of my journeys, which led me to work songs. I pitched it as songs of political history and to look at women's participation in Telangana People's Movement. And I had an issue, a conflict with the people I pitched with, because they said these are devotional songs, so we want a devotional angle. And I said, you already know it, so I don't need to, do another project to say that these are devotional songs, but these are histories that we don't know, so maybe I would want to. So all of that had happened. So a little bit more research and digging up, and then I had pitched it to IFA, and they were very much interested. Also, IFA is a research project, so it gave me more time to be on the field, some more resources to be on the field. And when I pitched it to IFA, I wanted to make a film. I also wanted to, in fact, at that point, I also wanted to look at, say, cinema that was already from the 70s and 60s, looking at left struggle. So Telangana has a whole history of red cinema. So I want to look at that relationship and all of that. So it was very complex at that point, but then I brought it down to just songs as political articulations of women across time, and who are these women. And so also it became important to see their relationship. So which is why I've built elaborate context. So whether it is the context of Malana Sagar resistance project, resistance against the project, or actually resistance for lawful rehabilitation more than just, anti-developmental. So it's also to say that we understand what it is and we want lawful rehabilitation, as well as the history part of it, that if women are remembered to have participated in the armed struggle, then what was their role? How did they remember their participation, and what was their relationship with the songs? Because they largely also enter these movement spaces through songs. So even like Sugna Garu in the film talks about how she was 8 and she was singing and playing the dappu. So that's how you enter these political spaces also. So if you're entering through songs, then do you write these songs? Or are these songs written about other women in the movement? Or who gets to write them? So all of these questions, I think, I've sort of tried to engage in. And I've very carefully tried to build these contexts to say that, it's not just a folk song or a people culture, but they're very much ingrained in these contexts. I'm unable to hear you. I'm sorry. I think you're on mute.
When we make films about art form or folk tradition, sometimes there is a possibility of getting sucked into ethnography, anthropology, and, and tradition and culture, and not talking politics. And so because that becomes a lesser form of art, and so how did you balance it? Like the film has film. Sometimes it appears to be an academic kind of project. Sometimes it becomes it is an ethnographic project. Sometimes it is a political project. It has many elements in it. So how did you handle it when planning, shooting, and editing the film, and were you conscious about that? When you come, or any did I miss anything else? I just said three things. There must be definitely many layers. So how did you combine these layers when you worked on them?
So one is that I am recognizing them as songs, but the women themselves don't see it as songs, because songs are sung by communities or castes who are performing songs, right? So these are songs that they sing at work. So they don't necessarily, if I ask them to sit and sing for me, they will not necessarily sing, because they will say, we are not people who sing, right? So these are songs that I can then only access when they're at work. And so there's that dynamics also, that they don't recognize these as songs because these are just traditions while working. So it's also ergonomical for that matter. And also everybody comes together for work. So you sing together and all of that. But you can't just sit and say, okay, now sing a song for me and I'll record it. And those dynamics don't exist with this. And there's no memory also. So the memory is also almost very much related to the work. So that way I was able to then focus on the song itself is political in nature. Like I didn't have to pull it out, though the way it came to me was as folk songs and people culture, where, there were many songs with many refrains clubbed together in a book. And then you have to go through it and then say, okay, I want this song, I want that song. So that difference I could make while listening to the articulation. I really have no other reflection on that process. But, when they speak about these songs, it becomes clear that that's the language. And Uyala, I also try to break out in the film that Uyala is just one other refrain. Though I do chase the Uyala song because it exists across these contexts, but it's just another refrain. It could be replaced with anything based on the location or the occupations, all of that. And the other thing was that so there is the idea that it is not art, though I did constantly. So if you say pata also, it doesn't work. So you have to say uyal pata. So otherwise they will start talking about, say, they'll say, okay, ogukata. They will move to a more performative art form. There was all of that. And then hence, when they're sitting at leisure, or you can't tell them, come here, I'll record and all of that. So it has to happen in the context. And the second thing was that it is academic because my intervention was academic, but I also try to keep it there as a reflection over my process. So also it's that all of us who go out there to engage with these songs or oral traditions or histories for that matter, are doing it also in a certain academic way also, right? So I think I kept that part very specifically as a form of reflection over my process also, that I did go to these spaces, I did collect these histories, but how am I going to handle them? So that was also one of the reasons why I kept it there. In fact, a lot of people who saw the first cut were like, it's unnecessary and all of that, but it was very much needed for me, at least for it to be there. Because I think even if you make a fiction film, you do go do research. And so then these reflections are very much part of the process. Yeah. So I do, like you said, that there is an academic angle, there's an ethnographic angle and all of that, but it was more, I wanted to retain the affective nature of these politics, to say that they're very much related to how they feel. And these are very much political languages, though they may not be in the way that we understand it. But if she's singing a song to the chief minister in a manner of not being a victim, but having agency and negotiating, and saying that, okay, you want this TMC reservoir, you can negotiate by building smaller reservoirs or smaller TMC, or give me a village for a village. So this is all negotiation. This is all speaking from. This is all political language. So I think is not lost, hopefully. Yeah.
Thank you. So before I go to my next question, I'll start asking others. So can I? We have our friend. We have actually we have many friends here. Let me start with our friend who joined, the new friend Vishnuvardhan. So let me request him to give his comment, and or if he has a question.
Hi, Aditi. Actually, I am from Hyderabad, actually, and my childhood I spent in the areas where you shot.
Okay.
So that was the main reason I came, and I lived in the area called Bongir. You showed called Bongir. So I lived there. My school till 9th class I spent there. So I can relate most of the stuff, how they speak and all, and even the entire nuances. Throughout the film I enjoyed it. That's how they speak actually. I don't know how many. It's very difficult because of the slang and the how they speak. It varies because of subtitles.
Yeah.
It change. It's how it translates.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask one question. That was main thing, because even it's all about women, and I've been listening Uyala songs from childhood in Batukamma actually. So primarily, like I listened in Batukamma times. So why are there not men in the film? Because why men are not participating? Even like now I'm participating. Even I want to talk about it, and I know some of the stuff. So why did you take that conscious decision?
So, sorry, is it done? I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt.
Sorry?
Okay, no, I thought I was interrupting.
Okay.
So this is a very common question I get, that why are there no men in the film? It wasn't planned. I did interview an academician who is a scholar and who's worked on folk cultures. I've also interviewed some men on the field and all of that. It wasn't planned to keep the men out as such, but it was primarily the political articulation of women that I wanted to retain. And it wasn't sort of, except for that academician who was completely in conflict with what the film was doing, because he was talking about fertility of women and all of that stuff. But apart from that, there was no plan. It after shooting, I think this is what my script wanted to do. Otherwise, it wasn't anything to keep the men out and bring only the women's narrative. Also, I felt, so after a lot of people have been asking me this question, I've been wondering why not have only women speak in the film. And we watch so many documentaries that women have no political role. They're there in the background, or whatever else, are doing domestic work around. So we never question anything. We don't say why are these films only about men. So why not? I actually realized it only after my first screening that there were no men in the film. And then I was like, okay, why not? It wasn't planned.
Why didn't you shoot? Why didn't you?
No, I did.
You shot?
Yeah, I did.
It happened in editing time or before?
Edit, or at the edit table. It wasn't a planned thing. So like I said, I didn't realize it, but I did shoot. I did interview.
Achha,
yeah, I did interview, and I didn't feel it added value to, at least the people I spoke to didn't add value to the
okay.
film.
So that was your conscious decision.
Sorry?
That was your conscious decision.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I invite Mr. Vijayan?
Yeah. Good morning. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much.
Yeah. So congratulations, Uyala, Aditi, and your team. Good.
Thank you.
Yeah. And as we are all aware, there are this song singing tradition all across the country and maybe in abroad also. Even I belong to Kerala, and even here in the fields, they do sing such songs at the time of sowing, harvesting, and all occasions. But one thing I could notice is that in this particular context, these songs, which are traditional folk songs, but they assume a different connotation, that they are interwoven into the struggle of their existence and all that, the burning issues. Whereas I find mostly in Kerala and all that, it's just to overcome the monotonous nature of their work they sing. But here it is, it's the singing. It has been, it gets transformed as a political, I mean, a tool, or rather a weapon to highlight their issues of existence, survival, and all that. So you get an entirely new dimension to this oral singing tradition. And yes, you have depicted this tradition, the history, and I think as far as this Sagar Dam issue is concerned, I think it is still live, because in today's Hindu also there was a news item regarding this ousties, their rehabilitation, their resettlement. So when was this documentary shot exactly? And since the issue is live, so what is the exact stage at which their struggle is there, or the proposal about the construction of the dam is this thing? And then, as can be seen elsewhere, right from maybe Terry Dam, everywhere, the impact it causes to the villagers or those places, those displaced persons. There is a striking, unfortunate similarity between the plight of these people, be it in any part of the country. These villagers, they lose their identity, they lose their everything. And the compensation, of course, the government on their part, or the authorities, they do give offer some money, but as is everywhere, it's too meager. They can't, it's not a compensation within quotes, if I can say. Because once they lose their natural milieu and they lose their land, out of the compensation, they can't get back the same, I mean, if not the entire area, at least not even a small piece of, even they can't buy a small hut. It's adequate. So the saga of exploitation, it goes on and on. And like another striking thing which I found is that, without detailing, without going into much detail, that lady is saying that their songs are adapted into films and all that, and then they recorded, they depicted them in the movies, and just for watching that movies, they have made to pay. And that you are merely as a spectator, there's no involvement. Whereas this one, it's such a rich and vibrant tradition. So hats off to you and your team. And thanks, Mr. Ramadan and Marupakam, for coming out with another brilliant documentary, very engaging documentary. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that, yes, the Malana Sagar project went ahead, land was acquired. There is some bit of resistance even now for lawful compensation, because rehabilitation also has taken place largely, and it's not fully gone, but I think the nature of the struggle has changed. But the film didn't try to cover the whole struggle, because there were a lot of artists, a lot of activists, a lot of farmers organizations have already been sort of engaging with it and putting out and publishing. So I haven't been part of the struggle, whether at the documentation level or actively contributing to the struggle from the beginning at all. So, but I used the art, like the song came up in the struggle. So the building of the, like, where did the song, so building of the context of the song was something I did by looking at the struggle, which is why I don't venture out to speak to others apart from the women who sing. Though I did shoot and all of that, I didn't include them because I just wanted to retain it to how do they understand the struggle, and then how did they articulate it in the song. I didn't go on to say how did the others participate and what, because all of the villages have different sort of engagement. So Vemulaghat is the one particular village that fought the most, while the other villages did give off their land, and the internal politics and all were quite different across villages. Even within this village, the one with the land has a different politics, the one without the land has different. So I didn't get into then those details because I wasn't engaged actively with them, which is why I didn't resolve it, but sort of said that this is one of the space in which these songs are used as political articulation. Just like even with, like you were saying that they're sung to sort of release themselves from the monotony. So that context also was sort of built to say that agriculture even till now has these traditions, but then agriculture itself is changing. So when there's no work, what happens to these traditions? Or when the nature of the work changes, then what happens to these traditions? So that those are some of the questions that they also say, that who wants to get into this muck and who wants to wait so long? Everybody wants to get on a bike and, go off to the city. So, so all of these are also how the occupation itself exists. So then how do the traditions that are born out, like they exist with the occupation. So how do they then exist? Are they still just going to be memory, or how are they passed on? Which is also why we did the take on the cinema, that they do listen to songs even now on their phone or on their devices. While on the other hand, Telugu cinema is making more and more films on agriculture, about returning to the rural and all of those anxieties they have. Also, agriculture becoming a corporate social responsibility. Mahesh Babu says, okay, we can wear our trousers and go and sow, and all of those things. So in that context, then music directors are also taking these oral traditions to use them in the background, or to ramp them up to meet their to make new songs. So all of those things are there, and so in that context, then how do we see these traditions as living? The occupation itself is changing, and what happens to them?
Okay.
Just one more small observation. Yes. And so with the advent of technology into agriculture, like now there is a sowing machines for sowing, even harvesting and all that. So that that bond amongst the workers, it gets diluted, I think, because the ladies, in one instance, while they are having their lunch, they are saying that they feel peaceful when they sit together and sing. So that element also gets washed away due to the mechanization that has crept in. Of course, mechanization has got its own advantages, or it will, of course, definitely it will improve, no doubt. But then in the process, it erases so many traditions, or such that togetherness also, I think.
Yeah. So then the questions then I asked, or I left there, was, is the onus of the memory of these traditions on them, just them, or so all of those things also came up. These are not questions to be answered, probably to be discussed.
Yeah, so we have a friend called Anuj who had sent a comment or question. Let me read. The film Songs of Our Soil reaffirmed the value of women in our society in spite of their continuous domination by men, the bracket patriarchy. Of how it is women to keep the house running. Their songs keep them running, that their voice is clearer in songs. Their pain hides behind fiction. The songs emerge from their bent backs like arrows from bows. Also, the fact that these songs put to light to oppression and haven't changed from the times of their grandmothers tells a lot about the meaning of independence and nation state. by Anuj, a student from Mumbai.
Okay.
Let me invite Smriti. Can I invite Smriti? Smriti?
Yeah, hi.
Yes, yes, yes.
Hello. Hi, Aditi. Thank you very much for that really lovely film. I watched it yesterday, and I just, while I was listening to the previous members of the audience and commentators, I had a couple of thoughts. One was that I thought that the presence of men in a very cinematic way is very much there, because you have the reflection of that man in the mirror for a long time. You have a song that talks about, probably in an ironic way, what are, what's a woman's worth without a man to support her. And then you have the Communist Party worker who talks about exactly what happened with the women who were part of the armed struggle when they came back from being underground, and how their concerns were sort of not taken on board by the male leadership. So in fact, I think that as a strategy, whether intended or not, it actually ends up being quite effective in reinforcing the situation of women across different periods and circumstances of daily living as well as of political struggle. Also, the fact, as you've said, that the opposition to the dam and so on, the songs are born from among the women's being together in the way they are at work and so on. And yeah, I wanted to say that I was very thrilled to find you interviewing Gogu Shamla, because I'm a great admirer of her. The one book of short stories translated in English that I have read, where she refers in the English translation to the laboring singing classes. And for me, even if you hadn't had her in the film, given my lack of experience of that region and language and so on, her work would have come to mind. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Smriti. So now I know many of our participants personally, so I'll call them one by one. And if you want to say any comments, you kindly raise your hand, or there's a symbol, no, the symbol option. Please do that. Inform us. So now we start inviting our usual friends who usually have comments to say. So let me invite Pratap, cinematographer from Kerala.
Hi Aditi. Hi Amadan.
Hi.
No questions.
You record from your hand problem.
Yes, it is okay. Fine now. No questions. Nothing more to say. It is very interesting work. I think the difficult part of documentary filmmaking is interacting with the people, and I think Aditi done well. The people, especially the local people in the film, are very friendly and very talkative, and they enjoy a lot your shooting process, whole process. That is very interesting to watch, and congrats for your work. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Amadan,
mic is mute.
How did you? Can you explain how did the relationship develop between you and the characters?
So I had been on field on and off for 3 years with several people. Like with Sugna Garu, I kept going back. So I was shuttling between Bombay and Hyderabad. So every time I would go back, I would visit all of these places. So one other thing that happened was shooting the agricultural cycle was very difficult. One is that I was finding it very difficult to build a team who could shoot nonfiction in Hyderabad. A lot of people do fiction and it works very differently. And even if I did try to sort of, I also wanted to work with women. That was one thing I wanted to do out of choice, but it didn't work out. And then even if I did want to bring people from say Bombay or Delhi or wherever else, the time didn't work out. So it's very unpredictable. You can't say that this day to this date we will shoot. One, because there were hailstorms during harvest, all very untimely weather conditions. That's something that they face every year. And then also we don't know which field is available to work on. So and if the singer is going to go to the field, so all of those very basic. So you go all the way to the village and they don't want to work on the field today, or there's no work today or whatever. So all those conditions came up. Then there's the wind, and so you can't shoot the lady singing while also recording the audio, because then the audio person is on the frame. So all of those really, so then otherwise, you won't have a lip sync song. So we had all of those really challenging, very, I think, creative challenges that we had on the field. Also, you can't go back to the same field again because most of these women are coolie workers, so they don't own the land, and the owner might have issues that we're in their workspace, and they might be jeopardized and all of that. So all of those things came up, and so that restricted how much I could shoot, but it also meant I could keep going back, and they were at least that way very generous with accommodating me. And the other thing with like Sugunugaru, also health had deteriorated. So even though we had some bit of say issues with the footage, I had to keep it because within a span of 1 month, the nature of the interview and how she looked and all of that also had changed drastically. So all of that was there. But yeah, it was an amazing experience, I guess, to balance out these things. But one thing I realized is that fiction, even technicians knowing fiction doesn't mean we are able to shoot nonfiction very easily.
Smriti, you raised your hand. Want to say something?
Yeah, actually, I just had a point of curiosity. There's the woman who later, the only sort of moment of incipient conflict in the film is when the woman with the handbag, who's from a landowning family, when they're all sitting together in the yard, and she says, "Oh, don't talk like that, because we're all one." And in an earlier part of the film, she has talked about how when the lands that she owns or her family owns have been submerged, it's the laborers on the land who are going to be most affected. So she has said that, and one understands her sort of reluctance to be lumped with the uncaring landlords, but she's there throughout with that huge bag of hers. And how did she enter your film and become part of the proceedings in that fashion? I was just wondering.
Yeah, so Sujata Garu also I met through someone who, so basically she works with an organization that is a cooperative for farmers. She specifically looks at farmer suicide widows, but she's in the area that is in conflict with the Mallana Sagar project. So they are also constantly doing all of the mobilization and all of the everyday bureaucratic work around the protest. So I think what I've understood from so there is an understanding that, there is a difference in how people lose land and all of that, but there is also the need to say that we're still, at that moment, there was still resistance. So there is a need to, because it's very easy when one village out of 14 is resisting for something that is, so difficult. Land acquisition is already happening in the other villages, part of the same project. So even if one person sort of shifts in the village itself to say, okay, I'll give off my land because I don't want to go through this, or whatever else, it becomes very difficult. So that at that moment, it was very important for everybody to be on the same page to resist. And I think that's the thing. And then they also have that idea of let's all be together and figure out our own differences together, as opposed to get this larger villain to separate us. And so that the other lady who sits to the other side also talks about it. So she says, first let us be together and then we'll figure out the rest. So there is that. I don't know. It's a negotiation they're doing on the screen at that point. But beyond that, I don't think I would be able to comment on the dynamics overall. Otherwise, sorry, you're on mute.
I thought it was interesting
Yes.
because it adds complexity. It adds another layer to the sisterhood of women that we're otherwise seeing and admiring and rooting for. And so you get a sense of it's more complex than that.
Yeah. Yes. Surely. Yeah. That was the point also, to say that it is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Drishti. Drishti, she raised her hand.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Amadan sir. Hi, Aditi. So I teach in St. Joseph's College, and over the last week, my students and I have kind of watched your film, and we had a discussion about it yesterday.
Okay.
So it was a great experience, and I think there was also much to talk about the film itself. So two things that came up in the discussion, I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit more. The one thing is, and this might be a stupid question, so you can completely show me away, but in the film begins with the Oyala songs, and then we see Gogu Shamla immediately after that. So Gogu Shamla is a relatively well-known writer, and I was very happy to see her, but it was kind of a shift from the image of the women in the field to her in a library. So I was just wondering if you can comment on that. The second question is, I think this is kind of a follow-up. The question about your relationship with the women. I was just wondering about that lunch scene in which one of the women, you're talking to them while they're eating lunch. So that kind of, it's a very interesting and a really nice scene to watch also. So I was just wondering if you want to speak about that moment a little bit, because I was just wondering if, like, they might have been busy, so you could speak to them only when they were free and things like that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. But to respond, like, I'll do it the other way around. So the lunch scene did happen because we can't speak to them while they're at work, and that's the most convenient space to speak. And they agreed to speak during lunch because, again, everybody goes their own way, and they also didn't want us to stay for the whole day on the field. They were also wary of them being checked upon and all of that.
Okay.
So then then they said, okay, we'll speak to you at lunch, and then after that they said, okay, why don't you go? So that lunch was then the most convenient time for them to speak. So the shift, I think, also is to do with then say that it is still research, and I think I'm also constantly reminding myself that I'm not trying to show some truth or whatever, but this is also some bit of intervention. So I keep going back and forth. I go from the city to, I also go to Sugnagaru, who's breaking, I think, time. So even though it's memory, it's a different time. So I'm constantly going back and forth to say that it's not one story. So that, I think, that's the ease with which I was able to do it. To say that it's not that linear idea. So I'm not making one story, but telling many aspects of probably an idea. So that's why I keep going back and forth. And Shamla Garu is doing this very, I don't know, I think the most profound thing for me was to connect all of these disparate ideas that I had on the field, to say that these are land struggles, political language, but also relationship with the land. And so all of those connections she does for me, and much more which don't make it to the film. But so then I sort of anchor it with her narrative. So yeah, it's also to say that it's not a linear thing, whether it's time or whether it's argument.
Yeah, and I think that happens also very nicely. I was just wondering because it came up yesterday in the conversation we had. I just want to thank you and Amadam sir for making this film and for allowing us to watch it. I just have one last follow-up question. Now, since like the dam has been built and everything, I was just wondering if you're still in touch with them,
With
planning a follow-up.
So one is that I haven't gone back. I have gone back this year, but I haven't gone back post-COVID and all of that. And I am not in touch with all of them. I'm in touch with just one person. They have been rehabilitated, and this, like I said, the nature of the struggle is different. But I'm not doing any follow-up work, if that's what you're asking.
Okay, okay.
Everything is just conversation.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Drishti.
Thank you.
Yeah, now I'll invite slowly other friends. Can I invite Mr. Kili?
Hi, good morning to all. Good morning, Aditi. Uyalo. The word you say is to refrain. That's what I heard. The word to refrain by itself is a political word. It has lots of political implications in that word. I think folk culture inherently has a political nature in its own capacity. Maybe it's a very localized political milieu that you can find within the folk culture. That's precisely the reason they were able to connect to a larger political thought, which had been there as part of their folk culture. The movie has actually interwoven these two things in a very fantastic manner. It is not that they are completely devoid of political nature. It's just cannot be seen as an ethnographic film or an anthropological film. Folk culture always has an inherent political contestation with the ideas that exist, be it landlordism or be it whatever it is. Even in the Indian context, until the subaltern historiography came into the picture, the nationalist historiography had a different historiography in the Indian context. So it's a source of knowledge, as French philosopher Lefebvre says. Like, oral history is a source of knowledge. So it's not that like just because these songs are sung in an oral tradition, they don't have a political culture. They also strongly have a political culture. I could see the anguish and pain that the woman talks about when the promises that had been made by the movement had been dismantled, and the anguish and pain she displays by her own words is quite disturbing. And it has been the same with almost all the grassroots movements that's been happening throughout India in the name of development. So it also brings in a conflict between the rural and the urban setup at one end, and also interconnects the dimensions of conflicts in a larger political space. So I see this movie as a really a well-researched one with a lot of thought process that has gone into. Thank you very much for this excellent film that has come out, which you actually has as a narrative. You have actually derived a narrative from that song. The base is only the song, but you have actually fantastically derived a political narrative from the film, from the rural to the urban, and then the reflection, the promises that they expected from the larger political space didn't actually work with them. So the anguish and pain as a result of, as a retrospective of the larger political space is also being displayed. I think there's a lot of cyclic process that has gone into the film, which displays different political junctures with different results at different political junctures. That's been fantastically interwoven. And I extremely welcome this film into the public realm because people, I know people who have connected to the Telangana movement, who talk very vibrantly and very emotionally to that movement. But what it has produced in the longer run to the real participants of the movement is what has been displayed, and it is a very. I look at also a critic of that movement in a very subtle manner through this song. So I welcome this film to a larger extent. Thank you for producing an excellent film. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. Aditya, I just wanted to ask, can you just explain about the history of red cinema in Telugu? Like where I remember in 80s, even in Tamil Nadu industry also, we had some red cinema, Sivakumalli. There are many films, So, but the Andhra Telugu industry has a long history of red cinema. Can you just talk about that? Because this film is also part of that history. Maybe it's actually part of that. Remembering that, talking about. Can you just talk about it for outsiders, just to give a brief history of that?
So I can't claim to know anything because I've only watched a lot of it, a lot of the cinema for the film. So as far as I've understood, there has been parallelly a lot of production in the Telangana-Andhra context from the 70s onwards, where they're constantly making films very much bringing, portraying, say, atrocities of landlords. So bringing out all of these issues of feudalism. And it is, while they have also tried to make some life histories and some stories of some specific landlords and their atrocities, there's also been a lot made as satire. It's not just, say, portrayal of, say, life histories of martyrs or atrocious landlords and all of that, but or just rebel. So the idea is also to bring out these socialist ideas that these movements have been sort of based on. But there's a lot of cinema on satire, so they're making also critique of politicians as much as they have done of landlords earlier. So like there's a whole range of cinema on NTR, his feudal nature, and how oppressive his regime has been. So I can't speak much about what went into it or who's made these films and all of that, but there are several films across time, across the span of 20-30 years that have parallelly produced a good amount of critique of the state, of a left critique of the state, of feudalism, and also sort of marked the martyrdom and participation of villages or people in this cinema. So there's a whole range, and I don't think I'm equipped to say more than that.
Because these films were made for commercial purpose also.
Yes, yeah. They were
popular films. They were released in theater. There were songs. They were,
yes.
It was a big tradition. Like people accepted and appreciated it. It was part of a public memory.
Yes.
It is not just intellectual, art.
Yeah. No. There were not any intellectual. So it wasn't parallel cinema. They were made parallelly, and they were very much mainstream. Like a lot of these films are mainstream. A lot of them have adopted songs, like you said, from the movement spaces. And a lot of the songs from these films also make it to the movement spaces. So it's all of that also. And a lot of heroes also, but like Krishna and all also have acted in a lot of these films, apart from that's what I can't claim to say that I know much about them, but I've only watched.
Yeah, I am very enthusiastic. I'm very interested in this because we have some kind of a stereotype opinion about Telugu films. They are so very loud and very violent, and very macho. We tend to reduce Telugu cinema into that. when we talk about Indian cinema, we give characters to many film industries, isn't it? Like we have Malayalam cinema and or even Marathi cinema or Kannadiga cinema or Bengali. They all have some art form or so-called intellectual cinema.
Yes, yes, yes.
But we always underestimate and dismiss Telugu cinema,
Yeah.
you know. And many of us do not know this side of this, popular films made on revolution, on the people's movement, on fight against injustice.
Yeah.
You know, they were not they were not classic films per se, but they were made public. They were consumed by public audience. They were appreciated by public, the general public. People paid money to watch those films.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm very interested in those. If any of audience members, Aditya also can explain to us. So that's what I mean. This film is also kind of an extension for that. It has certain references to that industry in the film, you know, and so that's why I'm more interested in it. So for a larger discussion.
So these films are even today shown in television, on television, and so they're like Shobhan Babu, Vijay Shanti, very popular actors of those times also have made these films. Like I'm saying, even Krishna produced them, so they did exist. And I think Telugu cinema has never let go of, say, land-based issues or agriculture in mainstream cinema for a very long time. Though they keep changing their anxieties towards it, but you know, even till date, I think they do keep having that conversation. But like you said, yeah, these cinemas also specifically talk about this revolution or rebel also.
I would like to say some filmmakers' names like R. Narayanamurthy and Dasar Narayan Rao. They especially focused on this folk songs and kind of what Amudan sir mentioned. How I remember I went to theaters in that particular time for watching these films in 90s and around 90s time. So even my father and mother, they were really interested in these films at the time. It was I wanted to say this, like parallel cinema and all, they don't know it was only cinema for us that time. It started for us, it started recently. Some of the filmmakers started making Maha and all. So whatever films were there in theaters, people went and watched that time.
Like there were characters, you know, communist characters in the film,
Yes.
which was very normal, very common in many of the old Telugu films. I remember, you know, like we have some good cinema in Tamil also, but we didn't have that kind of extensive, tradition of red cinema kind of thing. We had few filmmakers making those films, and at a particular time, if I'm not wrong, but it didn't continue in Tamil cinema. But Telugu has such a long history. We just have to remind ourselves. People tend to forget that. Anyway, let me just get back to our other audience members. I have Nandalal, a film activist, film society activist from Payyanur, Kannur district, Kerala. Can I invite Nandalal?
Hi, Amudan.
Yes, sir.
Aditi, it was a nice film, and it is the second film. It is the second song in which I hear the word Uyala. The first one is, of course, Tyagaraja song Uyala Logavaya that I have heard in Carnatic classical music sessions, and after that I am for the second time I am listening to a song in which Uyala appears. Anyway, as we all know, such songs always had history connected with some kind of liberation or freedom movements. And nowadays we know that the struggles or protests which gain momentum are those led by women. You can see many examples from all over India. And of course, songs have been an integral part of all these struggles nowadays. By the time Malana Sagar is complete, I don't know, all these people will get displaced into various places. And of course, a tradition of an oral tradition of these songs may come to an end. Our new system is changing all these traditions of or cultures. In our place, Kerala, as Mr. Vijayan pointed out, there had been a plenty of songs related with agriculture activities. Every activity in agriculture, let it be sowing, let it be planting or watering or harvesting, there were songs suiting the occasion. Nowadays, the entire scene has changed. With the decrease in the area of available land for agriculture, mechanization process is on an increase. Mechanization is there in all stages in agriculture, where your songs of soil has become irrelevant. Even if you know it or sing, it will be inaudible even to yourself in the sonata of all these machines. The harvesting machine, the sowing machine, everything is mechanized. A system is being manufactured where the culture or our history is ignored or nullified, and everything is made ready for the market forces. They are concentrated only on making profit and how to double, triple, or quadruple it. In between, for them, what song and what singing. This is the focus of your film, I think, which make that film very much relevant, and it will be the relevance of the film will be there for the coming years also. These agrarian reforms, as we see now, it will be devastating. It will be having a devastating effect on these farmers and these the people who live with agriculture activities. So at such a political juncture, your film is very wonderful, and it will be a fine experience for all those who are there for the people. Thank you.
But at the same time, memory is also a form of resistance, isn't it? Things don't go. Even anything can come, any industry, any technology can come, but memory is it's a greatest form of resistance. People will remember, and I think they will sing more. We don't have to lose focus, the hope, I think. Ramnanda, film student from Chennai. It is from, I think, Telangana. Ramnanda.
Hi, sir. Hello, Aditi. I am Ramnanda. I am from Kakinada. So, one thing I observed in your film is there is a story that is repeating itself. The old story of the activist of the Telangana movement. Again, the same kind of similar kind of stories happening right now. The way all the rebels joined together for an agitation or war back then in 1950s. Again, all the women of this particular village, how they are assembling together to fight against a system or a government that is one cycle that is repeating itself. That is one thing I observed, and there is one point which that got me connected to this documentary, because the dam construction that is happening in Telangana, that is again similar kind of situation we have here in Andhra Pradesh, the Polavaram Dam. There is a small tribal village in the interiors of Papikondlu forest. I've been there, and because of the construction of Polavaram Dam, there is a threat to this particular tribal village. It's on the shore of the river. This entire village will get wiped off, and these people, even though the government is not paying sufficient compensation for these people, even if they pay enough compensation, these people are not ready to move out of their uh, locality. They want to go deep into the forest rather than coming out of their locality and shifting to a city or town. And for that particular tribal village, they have to travel 2 hours. If they want to go to a school, they have to travel 4 hours by boat to reach the land. If they want to go to hospital, that is a very very remote village deep into the forest. So that I particularly got connected to your documentary because of this similar kind of situation which I have experienced. Those are two things which I want to say. And one thing, even though I watched the documentary and there was an explanation at the end what Uyala meant, but I didn't really understand what the meaning of the word Uyala. I understood what that word does, but I didn't clearly understand the meaning of the word. Can you explain?
Uyala translates to swing from
Yeah.
Telugu.
Hmm.
But the whole point also is to say that it's just a refrain to add to the rhythm and the labor while working, but it could be replaced with absolutely anything. So like for fisher folk, for instance, will sing Ailesa, or like that even these women are singing Rama Rama, so it depends. Not all of the songs in the film are also Uyala. I also let it go because the point is to say that the refrain also is not fixed. So
It's like
it's not adding meaning. It's adding probably rhythm to the lines that they're singing. It's not adding or removing value to the lines that they're singing.
It's like more like a word related to a region or a community, maybe something like that. A culture, maybe. Like you said, Hailasa or Hailasa is like you said, it is a fisherman. It's more like the coastal regions like Srikakulam or this East Godavari, all these districts,
Yeah.
rather than to Telangana.
Also, it's to do with rowing the boat and all of that.
Mhm.
No, that's why I'm saying it's that I think even at one point something it's about breathing the air going in and coming out. So that labor is also playing a part in what word you use to sing the song. So that repetitive work. So Uyala is also how you breathe when you say the word Uyala. So that's one of the explanations. There's no one theory that has been confirmed or anything. But so since Uyala is not adding or removing value to the songs that they're singing, it's a manner of how they sing these songs. So grandmothers have sung it as Uyala, it's passed on as Uyala. So Uyala can be easily replaced with Ram Rama or Alle Neradallo, whatever.
Because I haven't heard this term in my locality because I'm hearing it for the first time.
Okay.
Something.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. We have Vijay Shanti, lecturer from Bangalore.
Hi, sir. Hi, sir. Hi, Aditi. Vanakkam, sir. Hi, Aditi. Yeah, I really enjoyed the songs and rhythms and a lot of narratives that have come in. And I agree to most of these things that are coming, like, the joy of seeing Gogu Shamla there. And when the older activist was talking, it was like listening to Sujata Gidla talking about Ant Among the Elephants, her book, because that's something that she does, critiquing certain movements. My question is on how each of these movements should sort of reflect at some point in time on its own movement to sort of grow and to do what it tries to do. And Gogu Shamala also points out things like feminists are not doing this and academicians are not willing to take up this. On the other hand, Communist Party member, women is talking about this. So was this screened where ardent Communist Party members were there. How were they, taking this film? What was their response? That is my first question. So usually when I watch documentaries and then there are more of interviews, I don't know, it's maybe my personal way, I get bored, but that didn't happen. I was reflecting on why that was not happening. Maybe it's also because of the rhythm that it had. And I don't know, I think, did you at any point in time think that if you keep a lot of interview mode, will it end up being like a research per se? And where do we like sort of draw that line in that sense as a documentary filmmaker? Third question, I'm sorry, I'm just like going to take 2 minutes more. The last question is, there's nothing objective in that sense. All of us have our own takes when we write or when we do films. You were transitioning from podcast to making into a film. And when that transition was happening, you might be a Marxist, you might be a feminist, but you do want to critique it, right? So as a filmmaker, how do you balance those voices in your own film? Because your subjectivity will seep in. So yeah, that's it. If at all you have time, do tell us about how do you wrote for India Foundation of Arts? How does the writing process happen to get funding and all of that?
Okay. With respect to the left response, I think it's not like I did a particularly left screening, but there have been many screenings with people sort of, so it's not like a secret that these critiques exist, and like even Manikathalli and Manichal, that's We Were Making History is a book that is talking about women from these movements, critiquing at least their experiences, critiquing the movement from their experience. So all of these exist, but I think there was some bit of, I think, response. I think one thing I realized is I'm going to mix two things is I deliberately chose to keep the interviews as is and not treat it, though at the script level, I was like, I want to treat it, I want to do all of this. Like I was saying, I wanted to use Red Cinema. But at the editing table, I chose to keep the interviews as is because I want, like, it was a choice to sit and watch these women speak. And that was doing a lot more than just, sitting and speaking. So that was a reason why I chose to keep the interviews as is and not cut it. And some people, like the first cut did get a lot of, oh, it's a lot of interviews and where is your visual narrative and all of that. So I had deliberately chosen to keep this as my narrative and the language in which they are articulating their aspirations, disillusionments, all of that. And I think with respect to the left response, that was one of the things that became difficult to, it's not like it's overtly been said, but having to sit and watch someone say that these are my disillusionments was one of the things that came up in one screening. But apart from that, I don't think anyone has said anything. Also, like I said, this has been written about earlier, and Sugna Garu herself has sort of given this narrative in the book earlier. With respect to balancing the voices, so I did decide to leave out some people who have been in the movement spaces but are unwilling to say that, unwilling to critique because of their continued association even till date with the party. Like it's not like Sugna Garu says, I still believe in socialism, but it doesn't mean that you can't be critical of it. So that was something that I valued. So that was the reason why I chose to keep just her and nobody else also. So then some people were left out, like somebody asked me why there are no men. So there were men who I did interview, but I didn't keep it in the script at the end, not because they were men, but because, it was just, I left out men and women for that matter from the script. With respect to IFA, you could write to them and they'll also help. Like they're very responsive with even the process of writing and submitting the proposal and all of that. So they're very responsive and very
Thank you. Just one anecdote of sorts. So it also reminded me of my personal space. So my father is an ardent Dravidian in that sense. So he would sort of have his, list which is mostly this political sort of songs, and my mother's list is a different kind of a song where this whole personal becoming political is how it would be. I think when these women were sitting and talking and singing and all of that, it made me reflect on what kinds of songs we sing, what kinds of songs we listen to, even at our homes, and all these things were happening. So yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Vijayashanti. Now, I hope Aditi is not tired.
No.
We are extremely enthusiastic crowd. We'll have more and more people coming. Okay, now we have before I invite okay, Sahul, you சொல்லுங்க பேசுங்க. I will translate. Unmute பண்ணுங்க. Mic mute.
ஓ சார், இப்போ படம் பார்த்துருந்தேன், ரொம்ப நல்லா இருக்கு சார். ஆக்சுவலி என்னன்னா, நம்ம தமிழ் கல்ச்சரில் இருக்கிற மாதிரி ஒரு ஃபீலிங் வந்து நமக்கு இருந்துச்சு. இந்த டியூன் ஆல்ரெடி தமிழ் படங்கள்ல கூட வந்திருக்கு, நமது கிராமப்புறங்கள்ல கூட இந்த டியூன் இருக்குது. நல்ல அருமையான குரல் வளத்தோட அந்த பெண்கள் பாடுவது ரொம்ப உண்மையாகவே ரொம்ப அற்புதமாக இருக்கு. அதில் அவங்களுடைய ஏன்னா பாடல்கள் சொல்லும்போது ஒரு கவிஞனுடைய கவிதை தொகுப்பு தான் பாடலாக இருக்கும். அப்போ அந்த பாடல்களை வந்து குரல் வளத்தில் ஒருத்தர் சொல்றாங்கன்னா அவனோட வழிகளை, அவனுடைய ஆசைகளை, அவனுடைய தேடல்களை, அல்லது அவன் பார்க்கும் காட்சிகளை தான் அதை வந்து சத்தமே அதுதான் சொல்லப்படுது. அப்போ அப்படி இருக்கும்போது அங்க இருக்கக்கூடிய அந்த மக்கள் வந்து நம்ம தமிழ்நாட்டை சார்ந்து தான் அந்த டியூன் இருக்குது. புதுசா எதுவும் இல்லை. அந்த வார்த்தை ஜாலங்களும் அந்த வார்த்தை ஓசைகளும் ரொம்ப அற்புதமா இருக்கு. ரொம்ப அருமையா படம் பிடிச்சிருக்காங்க. உண்மையாகவே டைரக்டருக்கு வாழ்த்துக்கள். அவ்வளவுதான். இதுல கேள்வியா எனக்கு வர்றதுக்கு ஒன்றும் வரல. ஏன்னா மேக்சிமம் அதோடைய இலக்கியம் நமக்கு புரியல, அதுல என்ன இருக்குன்னு. பட் இருந்தாலும் அந்த டியூன் ராகம், அந்த பெண்கள் படக்கூடிய அந்த இது வந்து ரொம்ப அற்புதமா அவங்க பண்ணியிருக்காங்க. ரொம்ப கங்க்ராச்சுலேஷன், வாழ்த்துக்கள்.
Vijayashanti or Kili, please translate. I think I missed.
Yeah, Killy sir, mother end line cut ஆயிடுச்சு. So I'll just translate the last bit. If I miss out, please help me out in that process. Sir was, I think the last bit that he mentioned is whether one understands the meaning of those words or not, but through the rhythm itself, one can feel and understand what the struggles that they go through, and their experiences can be felt even to a person who might not be able to understand the lyrics and meaning of it. Killy sir, did I miss out? Yeah.
Basically, he started by saying that all these songs are poetic. First of all, basically, these are only a poet can write songs. So these poems have a poetical character in it by itself. So you can't define certain words because it's very poetic. But it also has a lot of expressions in it. He could identify himself with a lot of songs that are sung in Tamil Nadu and various other rural parts of places in agricultural societies. So he could connect with that, though he couldn't understand the meaning and the intent of the song. But he could feel the pain that has been expressed through songs by these women, because these songs capture the activities of everyday life, that the images, their emotions, and other things. So that I could really sense it, and he actually says thank you for bringing this wonderful film into the picture.
Thank you, Mr. Kili. Thank you, Vijayashanti. Can I invite Ramdas, a filmmaker from Kerala? Ramdas. Okay, Ramdas is not. I think. Okay, so I'll just start inviting slowly, one by one. Anika.
Hello.
Okay, Ramdas. Okay, go ahead.
Hello. Yeah. I mean, there is a problem of this connectivity here because I connected from my village. It's a good film, and nothing to add more. In relation to Aditi, I just wanted to ask one thing because I mean, bringing the songs, songs of the community or the songs, because songs are very, very historical important, as you mentioned. So it's a very, very, very good thing that you brought that things to a film. Aditi, I just wanted to ask you how you came into a film? Because I mean, as per the introduction, I came to know that you are a researcher. But then, what was the motivation to bring it as a film? And I just wanted to know what area you are researching for. So it's just a part of the curiosity. So that's yeah. So congratulations for the film, Aditi.
Thank you. So I'm also how do I say, I'm also into non-fiction media production. So it's not my first film, my first independent film, but I've worked on other projects as well. I am interested in documentary, and I've also done my master's in media and cultural studies from TIS in Bombay. So I am familiar with the medium, and I also think that what I also aspire to do is to sort of find a new language for my research. Then, you know, so this is also that attempt to say that I went on field and this is the work I've done, but I also want to communicate it in a different manner. So I am interested in with like video, actually mixed media, which is why initially I pitched it as a podcast, and there is some bit of training that has happened. But why I also expanded it or whatever, why I also like shifted from the podcast was because as I did the research, then there was way more happening than just say the songs and the history. So I, you know, then I wasn't sure that would accommodate, or at least I wasn't sure at that point that it would be enough to just do podcasts.
Okay, thank you, Aditi. We have Anika. Anika, can I invite Anika?
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. Just thank you for making the documentary. It was very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I invite Sharan? Sharan. 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 Okay. Anya Menon. Anya. Anya Menon. Yes.
Hi. I don't have any questions either. It was just a really well-made documentary, and I like the idea behind it. So thank you.
Thank you. We have Devaranjan, filmmaker from Orissa. Devaranjan.
Yes. Are you listening?
Yes, sir. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Acha. Aditya, just I saw it yesterday, and after seeing it, I forwarded it to some of my friends who are writing poems and are the activists of the left parties. So in that way, that film is very much educative, and you have brought 70 years of struggle, like from the Telangana movement of the days of K.S. Kondapalli Sitaramayas and Koteshwarama and other these to present Telangana separate state and the post the KCR's role. So it's a very much big journey of some decades. So is that way the experiences, those have the experiences like go back to kitchen, that instruction by the CPI party to the women cadres, from that to the anti-displacement struggle of the Sarovar. So it's a big journey actually through the poems that you have brought the background. So it's a little bit the problem to link with its background. Otherwise, it's the profound sentences the Sogona is sharing and the researcher is sharing. These are profound sentences. Who is linked to the background, who knows the history, they can very well connect it, because a lot of those who I have sent, they gave a very positive comment about your film. Like Olga I had sent, like Bimla I had sent, and some HRF activists also I had sent to them. So they are very much given the positive comments. So thanks to you for this, bringing this nice film. It's a courageous step, definitely. Those who are in the left movement, those are the voices who are hardly not come. I mean, very feeble voices. They will not come very much. That you have brought in your film. But for those who are not aware of the history, so that will be a little bit difficult for them to link with your film. That's my observation. And otherwise, is a very much courageous step you have done for the political activists. Those are in the process of this struggle, and lot of people had joined with the Telangana movement, lot of separate state, and what they experienced, we know it from their writings and interactions, and you have also brought it from that through that anti-displacement struggle, or the women's those are involved in the struggle. So it's a good effort, and poems definitely has a role in the struggle. I am part of Niyamgiri and the bauxite mining struggles. I know what the poems, the strength it creates within the struggle. So that way is a welcoming step, and you have thanks to you for this film. Thank you, Amundan.
Thank you, Devaranjan. Thank you, Devaranjan. Okay. Again, a profound observation, Devaranjan. Yeah. So I think we have, I think I've covered everybody. So Alice, can I invite you? Can I invite Alice? Alice. Okay. Sean.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes.
I just had one question to Aditi ma'am. In the documentary, there was I got the idea how the songs were all political in nature, and culturally there was an impact was there as well. But in the film, it's mentioned how these women were influenced by Marxism, and this idea of equality, and how in their minds they would be equal to their landlords now, influenced these women a lot. I was just wondering, where did this political influence even like properly originate from? Like one factor which influenced Marxism in their lives, and does that still exist even today?
This is a very long conversation, but if you see the history of the people's movement, or just Telangana in general, a lot of the earlier uprisings had some leaders who were influenced by socialism. A lot of the literature also came and got translated to Telugu, and they were reading it, and that's also one of the manners in which they got organized. So a lot of those narratives, at least a lot of those politics, were then getting translated to the context of Telangana at that point. So if you see the history of Telangana, we do have a long history of socialism being a part of our struggles. So what I think Goku Shamla Garu makes a distinction of is that how do you understand these ideologies coming from the top, and how do you understand it as assertion of your own politics? So that's where the difference was, and that's where a lot got erased, whether it's memory, whether it's a difference which was in the base of on the basis of caste, or whether it's just the language of assertion. So it's a very how socialism came, I think, is a very big question, but it is also like an important point as to how it became, it was welcomed into the movement spaces, and it has existed like it in various forms over time. There were differences and there were splits, and then so I think that's something that can be looked at. There's a lot written and spoken about.
Okay, thank you. I think I've covered everybody. We have Dushyant. Dushyant.
Hello. Sorry, some network issue. I just wanted to thank you, Aditi. I won't take much of your time. I'm born and brought up in these regions. They evoke so many emotions. Because, I mean, being in the social work space, we usually look at working for society as something just an intellectual exercise. And this has brought me back to the actual roots that, where pain and love and empathy are there. And that's where we come from the problems. I mean, we try to remove emotions out of our work, but somehow, somewhere you brought me back to my center. Thank you a lot for this.
Thank you, Dushyant. I think we've covered everybody. And if anybody wants to comment, yeah, Killy wants to comment. Yes, yeah. Final round.
Just adding to that word, Oyalo, I think the absence of meaning is what is very significant about that word. It is more philosophical word. That's what I feel in the folk culture. These kinds of words have different multi meanings, multi-level meanings, multi-various interpretations you can provide to these kinds of words, which is only linked to their own life and things like that. So I think it's more philosophical and poetic. We have to look at from a very aesthetic point of view to begin these songs with these kinds of words, which gives a very rhythmic sound to the song to be started. And the other thing is, how do you think the leftist movement in Telangana? When I see this movie, do these rural communities have been manipulated?
We can't hear you.
But have been manipulated by a larger political group for its own ambitions, despite being they could connect with the ideological standing or to the anguish and pain that this larger political group can reflect on or something like that. But at the end, at the very outset, or as a result of the movement, the sufferers are again the sufferers of the same old larger historical tradition. So where do they find a solution? Because these communities actually feel that they can get some relief from these kinds of ideologically connected political groups, but when they themselves get dejected despite connecting them to a larger political space, where would they find their relief from, and what kind of outlook that these larger political spaces look upon them after they have attained their political ambition and power?
Yeah.
I just wanted to know about it.
So one is that I don't know, it's a very large question that a lot of people have been trying to answer. But what I have gathered from what this experience is that, and why I keep iterating that this is a political language, is to say that maybe we don't, there was no need to bring the language and say that this is how you assert or this is politics, but to say that there is always, it existed always. So it's not just about pain, or it is about, say, memory, it is about resistance, it's about agency, and it's like you said, it's also knowledge. This is knowledge, this is like local knowledge, geographic knowledge. So unless these are identified as such, whether it's philosophy or knowledge or politics or whatever, we don't need that. Then there's no need to seek it elsewhere, for that matter, to give this, and which then that means that don't relegate it as for people's culture or folk cultures, and attribute it as historical, as political, as knowledgeable. So the outlook then to these, it doesn't have to be an assertion, or it doesn't have to be a book, it could be a song for that matter. So I think for me then that becomes that recognizing it as language, that I think historically a lot of movements, a lot of leaders, and a lot of people with privilege had sort of are continuing to overlook, because you can put from the top but can't see from how it already exists, I think is something I actually gathered from all of this experience. And also very profoundly, Yoga Shamla Garu brings it up also, that then that's the difference, and that's where the disillusionment is.
It's basically because I think our modern institutional framework attempts to look at these things in a very particular framework.
Yeah. And a lot gets lost now. So then you see the absence of so where are the men, and how is the assertion in this kind? Why is the language like this? Also, we are taught that this is pain, not taught that this is assertion, for that matter. So those are things that are sort of things we're already learning, that's what's been passed on to us. So that's what I was saying, that how did the oral tradition reach me, but how did I then go to the oral tradition? Have been completely disjointed journey.
Okay. We have a comment from Smriti. I think she left. Two recent documentaries that came to mind while watching yours, Up, Down and Sideways, which explores the songs of agriculture workers in Nagaland.
Yes.
And the SD Sarojdatta, which also incidentally has an old woman activist speaking of the male leadership pushing women back into stereotyped roles in the radical left in West Bengal. Okay. Anybody else? Final round. Quickly, we can wind up before it gets too late for everybody. Sunday afternoon, all will have. Any final comments? Okay. Thank you very much. So I think we have covered everybody. If Aditya has any final comments, thoughts, observations.
Thank you. It was as intensive as you had mentioned. And I'm so glad that the engagement is at this level. Like, it's very rare that people watch the film, yes, but they also don't engage to this extent very often.
Yes,
so I'm very glad.
Thank you. We are very thankful to our friends who really take effort to watch the film and reflect on the film. Yes. Take everything seriously.
And have circulated also.
Yes,
Thank you very much. Thank you.
But Aditi, the profound sentences from Suguna and the researcher, why you choose those sentences in your film? Because there is no background to it. So how you choose? Why you choose those sentences? And that's not compatible with the songs also. So that's a very much personal question to you. Have you come, your parent or you, or have come from that journey through literature? How you came to know about it? That's my question to you.
I don't know, like I haven't reflected on the process, but they speak like that. They already speak like that. I think I've just kept what they speak. That's their reflection and that's their journey. So I don't know. I also have been speaking to them, at least Suguna Garu, a lot over time. So then I also know what to ask her. So probably that, but I don't have an answer to.
Because that back to kitchen profound sentences of the women activists, that came very much later in the 80s or 90s literature. It came because up to that the women activists were not telling much about the. And in Telugu also, when K.S. wife, Kondapalli Kotteswarama writing came, then only people talked about it. So it is a very much, and the older people, they were aware of, they were talking about. You are a younger generation. How could you link with that with your poems? That's a very much, it's interesting, but also my observation is like this. And also regarding from the researcher's voice, that is on the left movement in the Telangana and the Maoist phase. That was the Naxalite phase. How the top people, they were coining the language of the bottom. So that was came in the discussion in after 90s only. And we were from the I have not ever joined with the party, but I am from the Marxist background. So I have gone through my writings, readings, and all interacting with all these people. So at your age, you are bringing and fixing it in your film. So it's a very much interesting thing. So thanks to you, and it will generate a lot debate also. Probably you have not screened it anywhere.
No, there have been many
Screening.
controversial screenings. In fact, in Bhubaneswar Film Festival, there was a lot of, I think, issues they had.
Subrat
Yeah,
has invited.
Subrat had organized it, and there were issues there also.
Thanks.
Screenings are quite, that's what I said, unpredictable. I can't
Because
tell.
the friends I have in Telugu, I gave them. They instead of they should give me, I gave them, and they watched it and gave me the comments.
Yeah.
So thank you. Okay, thank you, Amudan, for bringing this film.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So I think I think we have covered everybody. So we will wind up the session today. Thank you all, and the film will be on till tomorrow evening 6 o'clock. So please inform others also who have not watched the film. And we will have another film next weekend. So we'll keep you posted regarding that. I think we'll be showing a film called Some Stories Around Witches by Lipika Singh, right? So Deepika will be taking part in the discussion. And thank you very much, Aditi. Thank you, friends. Thank you very much for joining. See you next week.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. Then.
Thank you, sir.